In the Big Ten, a top 10 showdown, monster game between Penn State and Michigan. Noon kickoff on Fox. The Nittany Lions, the number 10 team in the country. The Wolverines, the number 5 team in the country. Harbaugh and Michigan, a touchdown favorite in this one with a total of 52 and a half, depending on where you shop. There is a juice 6.5 as we record still at FanDuel, but heavy juice on minus 120. We're seeing mostly minus 110, minus 7 for the spread across the board here, Brett.
Yeah, and it kind of speaks volumes to this slate that we're looking at, where Penn State at Michigan is not the biggest game of the day.
Yeah.
Normally it would be, but we're talking about it being the second, maybe even the third biggest game of the day. I'm really excited for this one because I think there's a lot of opportunity on Michigan. Michigan has not been an impressive team so far this year because of their schedule, and when they've played teams like Maryland and even the early goings against Indiana, they weren't blowing them out of the water. So I think people are down on Michigan. James Franklin, though, let's talk about his road record against Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State. So kind of the big three in the Big Ten. Teams he's hired and expected to beat. He is 2-10 on the road against Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State. And the average point margin in those losses is 16.5 points. He's lost by 30 or more points 4 times on the road. Again, to those 3 teams, he's paid to beat, he's expected to beat. And that's a big point of contention, and actually a big reason why I'm going to bet Michigan at 7 points. I'm good with 7 points. I'm not laying the juice on 6.5. It's just too much. I don't like betting totals that are juiced. But looking at the aggregate power rankings, Michigan favored by 9.5 points. Again, that takes into account Sagarin, FPI, FEI, SP+, you name it. They're liking Michigan by a lot more points than the spread is. And Michigan's at home. The Big House is a very difficult place to walk into and play. It's one of the cathedrals of college football, and it's a great environment to play football in, not great for road teams. So I'm wary, I guess maybe is the word for it. I'm not really sure why Michigan is only 7 points, and we're seeing some buyback to knock it down to 6.5. I want to talk about these run defenses really quick because it's really easy to look at it and say, oh yeah, Michigan's only allowing 2.6 yards per rush. Penn State's only allowing 3.0 yards per rush. Their resumes are just sketchy. Neither team has played a team that's above 99th overall in yards per rush. And interestingly, Sean Clifford has actually never thrown an interception against Michigan. He has a winning record of 2-1 against them. But I think Michigan's a better team here. And when you ask each of these teams to run the ball against a very difficult defense, Michigan has shown me that they can do that against Iowa. And when Penn State can't run the ball, we see what happens. We saw what happened last year when that team couldn't run the ball. They were atrocious. So I think when you put the ball in Sean Clifford's hands and ask him to throw it a lot more, it's going to go differently than if Michigan needs to line up and play bully ball or put the ball in J.J. McCarthy's hands and win the game. So I'm taking Michigan -7.
By the way, one of those James Franklin wins over Michigan was during the COVID year. So
yeah, well, let's talk about both of those, because one was against Michigan in that COVID year where Michigan went 2-4, and the other one was against Michigan State, who fired Mike D'Antoni that year. Those are his only 2 road wins against those 3 teams.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm with you here. It feels like they are not properly taking into account home field advantage on this line for it to be less than 7.5. Less than 2 possessions. So I think I'm with you on this for sure. I think Michigan here. The first time James Franklin wins a big game at Penn State when it's not a COVID season, then I'll start taking him seriously in these road environments and especially the Big House here. That's a tough spot for James Franklin and the Nittany Lions.